Now you might think you know the Suzuki RG500 Gamma inside and out, but there's a detail most people get wrong. While many assume the iconic RG500 shared a V4 layout with rivals like Yamaha's RZ500, Suzuki's final street-going machine actually used a square 4 engine, a design pulled straight from the Grand Prix winners. Now this wasn't just another sport bike, it was a road-legal replica of the machines that powered legends like Barry Sheene, Marco Lucchinelli, and Franco Uncini to world championships. That square 4 heart is more than just a technical distinction. It's the key to understanding why the RG500 Gamma stands apart and why its story is so often misunderstood. Now before we get started, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. There's a reason so many people get the RG500 Gamma's engine story wrong. The misconception that it used a V4, just like Yamaha's RZ500 or Honda's Interceptor, is everywhere, from online forums to bike nights. And it's easy to see why. The V4 was the hot layout of the era, promising compactness and big power. But the real story behind the RG500 Gamma is a bit more complicated and a lot more interesting. Suzuki's approach was anything but ordinary. By betting on two-strokes power-to-weight edge, Suzuki defied industry norms and made its GP machines lighter and more potent than four-stroke rivals like MV Agusta and Honda. This wasn't just a tweak, it was a total shift in thinking. Most manufacturers were still refining their four-stroke technology, but Suzuki saw an opportunity to leap ahead by focusing on two-stroke engines for racing. The company's engineers believed that a lighter, simpler engine could give them the edge on the track, and they were right. In the early 1970s, Suzuki did an experiment with V4 two-stroke prototypes. The V4 seemed like the next logical step, a compact configuration with the potential for high horsepower. But after testing initial prototypes, Suzuki found the V4's power delivery too unpredictable and its reliability lacking. The early V4s never advanced to full Grand Prix seasons. Instead, Suzuki's engineers recognized that chasing the V4 wasn't going to deliver the consistency and performance they needed to win. So they made a critical decision: abandon the V4 and focus their efforts elsewhere. Despite early V4 tests, Suzuki perfected a square 4, first raced in late 1973's RG Rider's debut. That became race-winning technology. The square 4 engine was a clever solution: two parallel twins stacked back-to-back, each with its own crankshaft, geared together to act as a single unit. This layout balanced compactness with stability and delivered a smoother, more predictable power band than the V4 prototypes could manage. It was lighter, handled better, and was easier to maintain at the limit. But what really set the square 4 apart were the innovations Suzuki packed into it. They adopted rotary-valve induction for sharper throttle response, deployed an automatic exhaust control system to broaden the narrow two-stroke power band, and used a race-style cassette gearbox for lightning-quick ratio changes. Each of these features was designed with one goal: to make the bike faster, more adaptable, and more competitive on any track. The rotary valves allowed Suzuki to fine-tune intake timing for maximum power, while the SAEC system smoothed out the notoriously peaky nature of two strokes, making the engine more usable across a range of speeds. The cassette gearbox meant teams could swap out gear ratios in minutes, giving them a real advantage during a race weekend. The results spoke for themselves. Barry Sheene rode the square 4 powered RG500 to back-to-back world championships in 1976 and 1977, cementing Suzuki's reputation as a force in Grand Prix racing. The square 4 engine didn't just work, it dominated. It proved that Suzuki's willingness to break from convention paid off, and it set a new standard for what a racing engine could be. When it came time to build a street-legal version, Suzuki didn't water down the formula. The RG500 Gamma's engine was directly descended from the GP-winning square 4, complete with rotary valves, SAEC, and a cassette gearbox. While other manufacturers took inspiration from their race bikes but compromised for the street, Suzuki stayed true to their roots. The Gamma was as close as most riders would ever get to a real Grand Prix machine. So the next time you hear someone say the RG500 Gamma was just another V4 sport bike, you'll know the truth. The square 4 wasn't just a different engine, it was a turning point in motorcycle engineering. And as we look closer at what made this design so special, you'll see why its legacy still matters today. The real breakthrough of the RG500 Gamma was its square 4 engine, a design that set Suzuki apart from the competition. The square 4 wasn't just a quirky idea, it was a calculated move. Picture two paired 250cc parallel twins, each with its own crankshaft, placed back to back and geared together in the middle. This setup created a compact, balanced unit that delivered the kind of power and handling Suzuki needed to dominate on the track. The twin crank design not only reduced engine width, but also allowed for excellent mass centralization, making the bike feel lighter and more agile, exactly what you want when flicking through a series of tight corners at speed. What made this engine so effective was the way Suzuki packed it with innovations. On the induction side, rotary valves gave the RG500 extremely precise control over intake timing, a huge advantage for a two-stroke. Instead of relying on reed valves, which were more common, Suzuki's rotary valves opened and closed at exact moments, letting in just the right amount of fuel-air mixture. This meant sharper throttle response and that signature, explosive power delivery that made the RG500 famous. On the exhaust side, Suzuki introduced the SAEC, Suzuki Automatic Exhaust Control. This was a power valve system that worked by rotating a barrel to adjust the exhaust port height as the engine revved up. The result was a broader, more manageable power band, so the bike wasn't just a one-trick pony that only worked at high RPMs. SAEC was a big step forward, making the Gamma's power delivery aggressive but more usable compared to earlier two-strokes. Suzuki carried this technology directly into the street-going RG500 Gamma, giving everyday riders a taste of what their GP heroes experienced. Chassis and transmission design got that same attention. The engine's compactness allowed Suzuki to centralize mass, which paid off in handling. The RG500 felt planted and responsive, a trait that came straight from its GP roots. Then there was the cassette-style gearbox, a feature you rarely saw outside of pure race bikes at the time. Now, the gearbox let mechanics remove the gear set insert by simply taking off the gearbox side cover, with no need to split the entire engine cases. That meant gear ratio changes could be done in a matter of minutes, not hours, allowing teams to adapt to different tracks with ease. For a road bike, this was almost unheard of, emphasizing just how closely the Gamma followed its racing sibling. The square force performance was as dramatic as its design. At 7,000 RPM, the twin crank square 4 roared to life, unleashing peak power by 10,500 RPM. And the stiff aluminum cradle frame, honed on GP circuits, barely kept the RG stable. The combination of a light chassis, centralized mass, and that sudden hit of power made the RG500 a demanding ride, but also a rewarding one for those who could handle it. It was a bike that didn't just accelerate, it attacked the road, with every component working together to deliver a true race experience. Now, this wasn't just theory. The results on the track proved their point. Barry Sheene's back-to-back 500cc World Championships in 1976 and 1977 were a direct result of the Square 4's advantages. The engine's lightweight, smooth, but aggressive power band and adaptability made it the weapon of choice for tackling the unpredictable challenges of Grand Prix racing. Suzuki's decision to focus on this layout, rather than chasing the popular V4 trend, paid off in championships and set a new benchmark for what a two-stroke could achieve. But the Square 4's impact wasn't limited to the racetrack. The engine became a symbol of Suzuki's commitment to pushing boundaries, both technically and in terms of rider experience. Its high-revving nature, the howl of the exhaust, and the rush of acceleration made it unforgettable for anyone lucky enough to ride it. The Square 4 was engineered for performance, but it also carried a sense of character, something that connects riders to the spirit of Grand Prix racing every time they twisted that throttle. Suzuki's engineers saw that this technology didn't need to stay locked away in the world of professional racing. They recognized the appeal of building a road bike that offered the same excitement and innovation as their championship-winning machines. This thinking led directly to the creation of the RG500 Gamma, a motorcycle that would bring the essence of GP racing to the street. When Suzuki launched the RG500 Gamma for the 1985 model year, the move signaled a shift in how manufacturers thought about street bikes. Here was a machine that looked, sounded, and performed so much like its Grand Prix sibling that it actually blurred the line between road and race. The Gamma didn't just borrow a few visual cues or a marketing slogan. It brought the Square 4 rotary-valve two-stroke engine straight from the GP paddock onto public roads, with only the most necessary tweaks for legality and durability. Suzuki's 1985-87 road-legal RG500 Gamma directly mirrored the Square 4 GP engine, not a V4. The production Gamma carried a 498cc liquid-cooled square 4 two-stroke with rotary valves and the SAEC exhaust system. This wasn't a watered-down version either. The core layout, power delivery, and even the mechanical feel matched what the racers had between their knees. The Gamma's engine was as close to the real thing as Suzuki could make it for the street. But of course, some changes were needed to meet road regulations and ensure the bike would survive daily use. Suzuki swapped out the GP Racer's titanium and magnesium fasteners for more practical steel and aluminum. They lined the cylinders with iron sleeves for longevity and fitted baffled mufflers to keep noise and emissions in check. Lights and other road-legal necessities were added, but the heart of the Gamma remained unchanged. Makoto Suzuki, a key figure in the project, summed it up by saying that aside from those practical tweaks, steel and aluminum fasteners, lamps, and baffled exhausts, the road-legal Gamma's engine was 100% identical to the one that powered their Grand Prix machines. The result was a motorcycle that delivered a riding experience unlike anything else available at the time. The Gamma's two-stroke engine didn't offer the smooth, predictable torque curve of a modern four-stroke. Instead, it demanded skill and timing. Hit the right RPM, and the bike surged forward with a sudden, addictive rush of power. Missed the mark, and it could feel flat. But when you got it right, that Gamma felt like a missile. The lightweight chassis, paired with that explosive engine, made for sharp, responsive handling. Every ride was a reminder of the Gamma's racing DNA. Now, Suzuki priced the RG500 Gamma at $4,995 in the US, making it accessible to serious enthusiasts and privateers alike. Now, this wasn't just a collector's dream. In some Grand Prix events, privateers entered nearly stock RG500 Gammas and managed to compete against factory machines, proving how little separated the production bike from its GP cousin. The Gamma's reputation wasn't built on hype. It was earned in the hands of riders who pushed it to its limits, both on public roads and on the track. Culturally, the RG500 Gamma stood out in a world where most production motorcycles leaned toward comfort and compromise. It didn't just offer speed, it offered identity. The Gamma's connection to Barry Sheene's championships and Suzuki's GP dominance gave it a story that resonated with riders who wanted more than just another fast bike. Owning a Gamma meant owning a piece of Suzuki's racing legacy, a direct link to the machines that had changed the face of Grand Prix competition. Despite its appeal, though, the Gamma was always a rare sight. Two-stroke engines faced increasing emissions regulations, and production numbers stayed low. Maintaining the Gamma required dedication, but for those willing to put in the effort, it was worth it. The bike's exclusivity only added to its mystique, making it a sought-after icon among collectors as well as enthusiasts. The RG500 Gamma marked a turning point in motorcycle design and manufacturing philosophy. Suzuki proved that it was possible to bring genuine racing technology to the street without major compromise. The Gamma wasn't just about speed or engineering. It was about capturing the spirit of an era when boundaries between the racetrack and the road were at their thinnest. This legacy raises a bigger question. What really makes a motorcycle legendary? Is it the numbers on a spec sheet? Or is it the story, the impact, and the connection to something greater? Few production bikes can claim factory-level Grand Prix credentials. Now, this is where the Suzuki RG500 Gamma stood alone. As the first true GP replica, the Gamma brought the square 4 rotary-valve two-stroke engine from the racetrack to the street, something Yamaha's V4 RZ500 couldn't quite match for pedigree. The Gamma's dry weight of just 337 pounds and 95 horsepower at the crank made it stand out in performance and authenticity. Privateers like Jack Middleburg even won major races, including the 1981 British GP, on nearly stock RG500s, proving the machine's real-world racing capability. While two-strokes faced tightening emission laws, limiting Gamma US sales and production lifespan, it only enhanced its exclusivity and cult status. If you enjoyed this look at the RG500 Gamma, you know what to do. Hit that like button, subscribe, and join us as we celebrate more motorcycles that changed the game.